Okay, we should be live. Hello, everybody. Let us know if you can hear us and see us in the chat, please. And if you can, then we can get started. Okay, I think that's all good. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to this webinar on how to succeed in a remote working environment. I'm David. I will be hosting this session with our lovely speakers, Denise, Debbie, and Alex. Had a lot of interest for this session, so I'm sure a lot of people are looking forward to it. I'm definitely looking forward to it. Remote working is something that is very important to me, and I'm sure it's very important to the people on this panel as well. A couple things of housekeeping. The first is there is a link in the top corner, flexer.career/webinar, which takes you to our website. It allows you to sign up and get matched to jobs which are perfect for you. So feel free to go there, and you can also find content that will be useful. And the second thing is, please, there's a lot of people who are watching this who have signed up. So say hi, tell us where you're joining from and what interests you in this session. And if you have any questions at any point, just ask them in the chat and we'll have some time at the end. So without further ado, we can introduce ourselves, say who we work for and what we do. Denise, would you like to go first?
Sure, thanks, David, and nice to see obviously the other panelists and to welcome all the folks who have joined up online. So I am Denise Abbey. I lead up the talent acquisition team for Camunda, which is a fully remote employer. Camunda is a business process automation platform and essentially helps companies to be efficient and manage and orchestrate their workflows. We have users and customers across many different industries, telecoms, financial services, and it's really, as I said, all about managing complexities. And I would say probably one of my favorite examples and use cases that we have is where Camunda has helped NASA with supporting some of their exploration missions and some of their Mars missions. And it's really been about how they have managed to ensure the spacecraft's systems and all of the instruments that they need to have in place to communicate with Earth and to navigate correctly, so that we can obviously bring those folks back to Earth, are all in place and running smoothly. So I love that example, and there's lots of good information on our blogs around that as well.
Nice, that's a fantastic example. Sounds very cool.
Thank you. And just to say, I'm based in Dublin, Ireland. I was just saying before this, we have lovely sunshine here at the moment, so everybody's in good form in this location.
Nice, fantastic. Debbie?
Hi everyone, good afternoon. I'm Debbie Fraser. I lead talent acquisition at Boomi for the EMEA region, so that's Europe, Middle East and Africa. So yes, Boomi is a platform. Our mission is to be the world's #1 for data integration, automation and AI orchestration. We're in a very similar business to Denise's Camunda. And we are also market leaders in our space. And I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Lovely to have you here. And Alex?
Hello, everyone. I'm Alex Voakes, the CEO of Peak PO. We're an international employment organisation, and we basically facilitate remote work. So it's cool to be here, but we're the purpose-driven, people-led organisation in this space, and that's what we do as a business. But also part of what we try and do is push progressive working policy practices and really show businesses they can behave differently and treat their employees well and treat the planet well too. And hopefully in 2025, it's quite challenging, but we're going to keep pushing that way to be a business for good. So that's what we do. And honestly, a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Nice. It's a great cause. And I'm David. I'm a software engineer for Flexer. In case you haven't heard of us, we are hosting this webinar, but in case you haven't, we're an employer branding platform. So we help companies make public and shout about what makes them special. And we help candidates actually find those companies that are the perfect match for them. So the first question that I want to ask the panel is very basic. So tell us why remote working is actually important to you. So what aspect of it, what is your overall feeling about it, and how does it affect your life? Alex, would you like to go first?
I can do if you want. So I'll start on a personal level, right? So remote work's critically important to me because one of my big hobbies is I'm an ultra runner, is what I do in my life, and I simply wouldn't have time to train for those sorts of things without remote work. Because as soon as I finish work, I can shut my laptop and I'm out into the hills near where I live. And what's critical about that for me personally is in that decompression time, as soon as I leave my house, I'm processing what's happened in the day at work, come up with some of my best ideas at that point. And then at the back end of that run, I'm sort of getting into home life in terms of I'm ready to get home. And my point of working from home to arriving back at my home is gone from my workplace to my house. And it's like critically important for me to have that separation for that. And as an organization, like it's the same for a lot of our team there in terms of they've got personal ambitions and things in their personal lives they want to be getting on with. And the remote works gives them time in their lives to be able to do that sort of thing. And just for remote work as well, for the organization, right? I live in Reading. If we were a small organization like us, I really need people to believe in what we're doing to thrive here. And in Reading, the talent pool would be quite tight for me to be able to do that. So if I expand that out as far as possible with having a remote first culture, we can really get the people who really want to work for Peak PEO and change that. And also, lastly here, we get to retain key members of the team with remote work, because if someone's life circumstance changes for whatever reason, in the past, they might well have had to move somewhere, leave a job that they had a home base for. Now, people within our organization can move wherever they need to be, and we can retain talent, knowledge, like experience in our organization, and people can just turn up wherever they turn up the next day. It's just open a computer. If you got it, you can work it. So it's very important to us.
That is, I completely agree. And when you work for someone who gives you that kind of ability to be flexible in that way and to let you mix your personal life with your work, then it makes you really value where you work and makes you more likely to stay. It's definitely been the case for me, so I definitely agree with that. Debbie?
Okay, so to that, I would say that I don't think I would get my work done if I wasn't working remotely. And that's the truth. So at Boomi, we have always been a remote first organisation, even in the days prior to COVID. And then as the years have progressed, we've also got 3 main hubs across the globe, where we operate a hybrid model from those hubs in Barcelona, Vancouver, Sydney. But if you're not in one of those hubs, typically, you're working remotely at Boomi. And for me, I just can't imagine managing to get all of my work done if I was spending that time traveling to and from the office, and with all of the lovely interruptions that you have during the day with all the chit chats in the office. So I love having the flexibility that I can go to an office if I want to, but for us it's mainly, and for me in my role, I actually manage teams across the world, so across the US, India, and across EMEA. So none of my direct team members are actually in my local country anyway. So when we do meet up, it's much more intentional, and you get a lot more from those sessions because you really value them and you make the most of them. So I feel very, very privileged to work at Boomi under this model.
Yeah, it sounds very useful there with having to manage a remote team, like a completely kind of a global team, especially in terms of time management. Like you said, you save a lot of time when instead of commuting maybe 2 hours every single day, you're actually able to communicate with the teams that are either ahead of you or before you in the time. So I think that's very important there.
Exactly.
And Denise?
Yeah, I would say equally, starting from a personal standpoint, I have a 1-year-old who has his own schedule. And so, it definitely allows me the flexibility to obviously focus on him and be able to do my drop-offs in the morning and my pickups in the evening. But, while I absolutely love my career, I love my family more, and I don't have to choose. I don't have to sacrifice as a female. I can obviously, have both, but have the autonomy as, a remote worker to be able to ensure, to what Debbie said, I can get my work done and structure my day in such a way that I can continue to focus on my family and not be commuting into the city to go to an office. So that's really valuable for me from a personal standpoint. From a company standpoint, we're going through I suppose a process at the moment in terms of implementing really intentional strategy about our global hiring and our ability to hire skill sets and niche skill sets in many locations across the globe. And we wouldn't probably be able to do that and be as open-minded to where we can hire folks if we didn't have this remote concept. And also it allows us to probably bring opportunities to part of the world that maybe wouldn't get access to these type of career opportunities as well as a result of that. So I think there's a lot of positives from a skill set and obviously a diversity of talent and expertise perspective as well.
Yeah, that's sounds like there's a whole mix there in terms of there's personal reasons. There's also the professional side for the business point of view. You get to attract more talent and retain that talent.
Yeah.
And that's just so true. To me, I have a mix of that as well. The personal side is I have family that are a bit kind of spread out. For example, right now I'm in Canada seeing some family, and I'm able to work from here and present this, and that's so important to me. It's the reason why I want to work remotely. And I always say it's well, no matter what a recruiter could tell me, and no matter how much they could pay me right now, I know that my employer lets me live the life I want based on my personal reasons, and it makes me professionally productive as well because of that. And so it's the best thing you could ask for. So the second question that we have is for the people who are trying to find a remote friendly job, whether it's for personal reasons or professional reasons, how can they best showcase their capabilities and their ability to actually work remotely, both on the CV and also during the interview stage when they're actually talking and giving answers? Feel free, anybody who wants to answer that first.
I'm happy to jump in. I think, what I would recommend to folks, certainly from a CV perspective, is, bear in mind the people that are actually reviewing your CV. What you ultimately want to do is craft a CV that will stand out, and obviously not just be something that is very generic. I think the recommendation is very much tailor your CV and the content of your CV to the role that you're applying for. Make sure your skills and anything that's quantifiable really stands out as really relevant to the role and the specifics of the role. Ask yourself what moments in that CV and that review do you want that hiring manager or that recruiter to remember, and make sure that they're kind of front of mind. I would also say, and this is one thing that I'm very particular about, is attention to detail. Take extra minutes to review your CV. Make sure there's no spelling mistakes or things like it might seem super basic, but honestly, if you are looking at a CV that has a ton of mistakes and formatting and spelling errors, that's not a really good first impression. So extra minutes might make all of the difference in terms of reviewing there. What I will say then in terms of just obviously the interview itself, preparation is key. Again, spend time researching. Don't just go to the careers website or the company page. Dig into articles, dig into publications from the company. Go that extra mile when it comes to that preparation. Talk to folks you might know in the company and get some some inside information in terms of what's shareable there in the company. I would also say get to know the values of the organization, and don't take those lightly. Make sure they align to ultimately your values as a person as well. I think that's really important. You're very much trying to look at like the kind of environment that you can see yourself in, and make sure you do that research as well. I would also say try and get to know a little bit about the team and the department that you're interviewing for, as well as a layer deeper than just the company itself. And then prepare some good questions when you're on the conversation. Get to talk to the folks that are potentially going to be your peers, your co-workers, and your manager, and ask them questions that are top of mind for you. Then other than that, I would just say prepare from a technical perspective as well. Again, just thinking in advance, are you in the right location to do this conversation? Think about, again, look at it as if you are in a room with this individual. Think about your body language and how you're relating to the person that you're speaking to, your framing even on the screen. Make sure that, you're front and center in that conversation, so it's very natural and comfortable as well. But taking that time to do your technical checks and making sure you're in a good Wi-Fi zone, and there's no interruptions that can throw you off in your conversation, because ultimately what you want to do is put your best foot forward in these interviews as well. So making sure any kind of disruptions like that are avoidable for you in advance.
Yeah, those are some really good tips, especially the asking questions and finding out about the company. That's always my go-to. It's ask a lot of questions, be interested and be genuinely interested. It's true. Debbie, Alex, more to add in terms of helping candidates that want to work remotely?
Yeah, I'm happy to add to that. So I loved especially what you said there, Denise, about the tech check. So I cannot emphasize enough how many interviews I have seen, go downhill quickly when the candidate's trying to get the audio and the visual to work. And a way to avoid that very easily is just do a tech check. I ask my recruiters for all of especially our panel interviews, and you've got a lot of people attending, to do a tech check with the candidate maybe one day before, because lots of companies, we use Zoom, we use Google Meet, we use, all the different platforms out there, and you might not be compatible. So it's always good to get familiar with the platform and do your audio and video checks the day before. But something else I would mention as well is dressing for the interview. Sometimes when we're at home and we feel really relaxed, please always remember that it is still a professional interview, and you must dress really just as you would if you were going to meet that person face to face, to make a great first impression. And yeah, I echo a lot of what you said as well, Denise, about connecting with the people who work there. So I had a candidate recently as well. We did an interview this week with a candidate, and a question I always like to ask is, how did you prepare for this interview today? And they said, well, I just went on to chat GPT, and I asked them all about Boomi and the top things that I should know about. And I was like, oh, great. Okay, what else did you do? And there wasn't a lot else. So I think, really demonstrate you've gone above and beyond. A great idea is to connect on LinkedIn with people who might be working there already, and just ask them, what is do you work remotely? Is it hybrid? What's the policy on it? Are you enjoying it? And at the very least, you can always ask the recruiter for that information as well. I think those are the main things that I wanted to cover. But something else there was one other thing actually, which is to assure your interviewer that you are, ready for success to work from home if it's your first remote working role. You can just make references to the fact that you have got a designated space at home. You've got a chair, you have a desk, you have adequate lighting, you have a focus area, you have, everything. You have managed the space to ensure that there will be no interruptions, or minimal interruptions. Okay, if we're in an office, we get interrupted as well, but just that you've thought about these things so that you're able to focus on your work. And the chair and the desk, whether it's a standing desk, a walking desk, sitting, or just make sure that whatever your needs are, they are catered for in your home office environment, even if it's not a dedicated office. We're not all, lucky enough to have one office, a nice office space in our houses. So.
Yeah, we can't always have a nice office space, but showing that you have some kind of environment that is like, this is my workspace, is very important. And having the technical skills to even just be able to have the interview online, I think that's step one for sure. Alex, anything more to add? I see some people also.
Yeah, I completely agree with a lot of what's been said here. Like for us personally, like in terms of with the resume, what we're looking to do there is match the skills that we need filled in. So that's all that for a remote job, how we hire is that's what that does. And then in the interview, what we're looking for is a culture fit, because it's so critical to us that we have trust and that they fit in with our culture. So that research into what the company stands for, what it does, is critical to us. Like, and that's like such an important part of that point. Like we skills match, and then really show us why you're going to fit into the team, because it's so much harder remotely to create that connection, and they need to have that cultural fit. Now, here's the thing that I completely agree, right? It's important to have a tech check. This is an ideal situation. This is critical. But I've got an example of when this wasn't the case, but that culture thing cut through a bit better, right? So 3 weeks ago, we had a job interview where a candidate had a very good CV, looked good for the job, and he joined the interview and his Wi-Fi wasn't working, right? But he started the interview with such passion about what we were doing with the correct skills, and going through the interview, it just really engaged me about what we're doing, going, this is the right guy for the job. This look feels right. It was a 20-minute interview, and in that time, his camera moved 3 times, right? And because he had the passion and the drive to do that, it matched what I was looking for. And we got off to debrief about this, and we thought, this guy's perfect. He's got all the skills. He's got exactly the skills we're looking for into what we're doing. But it'd be cool if we knew what he looked like. So this was an interesting thing to say. Ideally, get that sorted. But if it isn't working, don't panic and show what you've got in terms of do the cultural fit. Are you going to match for this company? So don't, yeah, I'm not advocating finding a dodgy Wi-Fi connection and you're going with that. This is not a plan. But pushing, if it does happen, don't panic, and be passionate about where you're trying to get a job.
I was going to chime in and say the same thing, just in terms of like naturally disturbances happen, but it is how if you handle them professionally and calmly. I think that also, you know, because again, in real life situations, you like depending on your role, if you're in a client facing role, you could be on a conversation with somebody in your role, and those same things will happen. And again, it's about how you are cool, calm, collected, and in your approach to those scenarios as well. And so that's almost a good signal in itself as you're on the interview that you can manage those kind of things. And equally, even coming on to this, I have to admit, I have a dog here, and I was like, literally talking to them before, going, please don't start jumping across the furniture. Don't be like, you know, stuff like that just happens, and there's not much you can do about it. But also, you know, just being prepared to manage them effectively.
Yeah, like in this example I was saying, he'd never even mentioned it. It was just presenting all the time, and it felt good. And then we did do a second interview where he was in a different room, and we did see him, but we'd already made the decision by that point, to be honest. And there was like just a verification there. So yeah, just.
To add to that then, Alex, so if you were on the fence about that candidate, right, and that happened, okay?
Yeah.
If he had said to you, I'm sorry, Alex, when I ran a pre-interview tech check yesterday, this didn't happen, and I'm just not sure what's happening today, at least that would show you, hey, super organised, thought ahead, planned ahead, but these things happen, and they happen in real-life customer calls as well. So, and to Denise's point, it's just about how you handle it when it is live.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I think a key takeaway there is that definitely do the tech check and try to be prepared, but at the end of the day, just be yourself, show your interest, show why you really want to be there. One thing I like to say is show your motivation. Your motivation is key, and people can read that on the other side. Even if they can't see you properly, they can read that at the end of the day, and that's really important. Well, one thing I find really important as well from kind of seeing candidates or people who want to work remotely is showing that they have autonomy. So it was mentioned that they have the skills, right? And that they show in their CV, and when you speak to them, that they're able to be autonomous in the way that they actually perform their task, because when you're working remotely, you don't have your boss right next to you, or you don't have this working environment that is a pure office. It's up to you to really get down and do the work. And someone who can do that is really important. In that same theme of kind of getting down and doing the work when you're not in the office, how would you say that you find maintaining a work-life balance? when you're in a remote environment? That's a very, I know it's a very commonly asked question, since you're at home and you're working, and then you're at home and you're not working. How do you find that separation?
Yeah, I'm happy to kick off on this one. So I love when that question gets posed, because most people think work-life balance, how do you stop yourself going for that run or hanging the laundry up or going for an extra long lunch? Who's really going to know? I don't know about anyone else here, but for me and for many of my colleagues, it really is, it's the opposite. It's about, and as I say, I've kind of been doing this for about 7 years or so now, working from home. And it's just about, so where is that definition of the work day ending? It is so easy to stay on and do a little bit more and a little bit more. And that has a detrimental effect on your work-life balance. And that's not fair to yourself or the people around you. So I have had to learn and teach myself to be really disciplined. And that's the key thing. It's a discipline. And of course, with all jobs, there are times where we need to go over and above and we need to do extra. But you know what? If no one's hair is on fire, we can end the day when we're supposed to end the day and go. And so that's number one. It's being disciplined with time management will help you be successful. Number two, I would say, well, there's a couple of things that I wanted to say on this one, actually. Now, interruptions and childcare. So I'm a mom, I've got 2 young kids. It can be very difficult to work from home if you also have children in that environment. I would say that it is important to have adequate childcare in place, especially as well if you have young children, because young children don't understand that our parents don't want to focus their attention on us. So that's really challenging, especially with younger children. I've got friends who do that thing of going out the door, bye, I'm away to work, and then sneaking in the back door and going up to the office space. So when they've got younger children, I'm in a position now. My children are a bit older. They usually know not to interrupt unless it's an emergency, and if it's an emergency, they write a note, which usually involves, can I have another cookie? Another biscuit. Those are the kind of emergencies we really are talking about here. And right at the beginning of this call, my 12-year-old son came in. Mum, is it okay if I go here? I just told you 2 minutes ago, I'm going on a webinar. Don't interrupt me, please. So the childcare piece is always a tough one, but there are advantages, right? I don't have to put my kids in breakfast club and after school club like I used to, because they're a bit older now. So you've just got to think about it and have good childcare in place so that you can focus. But one thing that I wanted to talk about, and then I'll hand it over, is stress management as well. So like Alex earlier, you were talking about how you can go your run and then you can decompress and you can come back to it. I think that is the danger when we're working from home and we are, we've got all the pressure and your mind is work. And then you turn around and someone's asking you for a cookie for the 4th time in the day and you've said no 4 times. So I've had to learn, and be really mindful of that. Don't take your work pressures out on your family the minute you turn around. So that's really tricky to learn and be cognizant of. And I think, personally, I think I'm much better at it now than I was a few years ago. So, yeah.
I would highly agree with Debbie and what she said there in terms of that kind of always on concept and mentality. And I do think that, when you do work in a remote environment, you have to be your own boss on those concepts. You have to be disciplined for yourself, because nobody else is really going to tell you, oh, you shouldn't be working all hours. I think companies obviously create environments where there is a focus on wellness and all of those elements are fantastic. But I think, again, it's down to each of us individually to make sure that we're managing that for ourselves. And again, as a mother and someone who just came back from parental leave in January, like, it's a whole new sense of balance for me. And like, I definitely spent the first quarter of my return just trying to figure out how to do this, and it was really tough and challenging and mentally taxing as well. So I do think there's a couple of things, and what I found useful, that like we use Confluence as one of our tools, which is what we call our handbook, and created an About Me page, which talks about my style and about my availability, and in terms of the hours that I want to work and will work and be available to folks in the business, and being able to share that with new people that you're working with and say, look, here's a little bit about me, and like that captures some of that detail, which is useful. Respecting the blocks that you put in your calendar as well. Again, I mentioned childcare pickups, they're locked in, I cannot change them, I have to be there. So again, making sure that others are aware of what that looks like, and they're not, people can't book over those kind of things as well. I would say as well, like, turn off notifications when you are done with the hours that you said, because that's the one thing I personally, if I hear a beep, I'm like, I get anxiety. I'm like, I need to respond to this. I don't. There's a lot of things that can wait or can be scheduled in terms of follow-ups. And I think that can go two ways as well. If I send someone a message, I need to be prepared for the fact that can create a chain of expectation on responses. But if I want to send someone a message and I don't need to get into that chain, schedule it for the next day. Be mindful and respectful of other people's hours as well, because I think what goes around comes around. I would say create those boundaries. For me, boundaries is sustainability. And again, as I said, you need to just be mindful of that for yourself, and be intentional about how you manage those things. And as Debbie said, like, I recently joined a tennis club, and just forcing myself to block times where I know I have to be out, and I've arranged to play matches, and I will be doing other sports over the summer, and that's my getaway as well, and the balance that I need in order to be able to create those boundaries.
Yeah, that's so important, having those boundaries, setting up the time so your colleagues also know when you're kind of doing school pickup, when you've got something planned for yourself to take care of yourself mentally as well. It's important. That open communication with your colleagues and with your manager is, I think, is also key, just to make sure that you're telling somebody what you're planning on doing, in terms of it forces you to be to actually say, oh, okay, this is the time where I'm going to go for a longer lunch, I'm going to go for a walk. I see some people in the comments saying they go for walks to de-stress. So important to go outside when you're sat at your desk all day. Some days it can be really bad because you don't have a reason to move. You'd actually make the reason yourself.
And that's why I love having a dog, because I have to take them out for a walk, and it's a good forcing mechanism as well. But just one other point to add: when you are in a company that is growing and scaling, and I can certainly comment for Camunda, we are a global organization. We have folks who are based in many different time zones, and so as I said, that always on element will consistently be there. So that's why you have to build out a framework to manage that, because you can't do that every day, and you can't be on all the time, and really ruthless prioritization is part of that exercise as well. And as I said, then just figuring out those mechanisms. I have people in my team in the US, I have people across Europe, and again, being mindful of their calendars as much as my own as well, and being thoughtful about that.
Fantastic. Alex?
I agree with everything said. I think one thing that we do, we're a much smaller organization than Camunda and Boomi, but for us, the work-life boundary is like it's sort of blurred into like the life that we create for the employees here, in terms of we give them so much flexibility and time back in their lives that they can take in the day to do the school pickup or something like that, that the boundary at 5 o'clock doesn't actually exist, in terms of it's an unspoken rule that they can work after 5 if they want to, in terms of there's nothing said or done, but they respect the time they get in other aspects of their life, so that it's like a real blurred line, having life and work together in terms of finding the right time that fits them. So I think it comes down to, for us, it's like a bit of magic culture we have of saying, giving people something to believe in. The job is something that allows them to do what they want in their personal life. So that boundary becomes completely blurred for when they want to work. So we don't contact each other after 5 o'clock or something, because hopefully the work's all done. But if it does come in for whatever reason, it's we're an international organization as well, people are willing to find the time. Like we're also a 4-day work week company. We open 5 days, split the team Monday to Friday. But with that, if someone has work to do on a Friday, they work Monday to Thursday. On a Friday, if there is something to do, they will always do it, because we've created a culture of like belonging and with trust and engagement that people want to make it happen. So I think there's like, it is important for businesses to keep that balance. And if you haven't got that culture, of course, having these no contact or like giving people an out, but it is also possible with a smaller organization to build work into life as well and find like this blurred line throughout the entire week. That's really untangible, but this I can't quite explain exactly how we've done that, but it works for us. So
Go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, but I do find though that when you hire really conscientious people, they want to do the best, and there is a risk that they will overwork as well, you know. And so when if I see my team members on after hours, I'll say to them, you know, come on, you know, is this really necessary just now? There is an element of complete, you know, everyone at Boomi has autonomy to do their jobs. And like you say, Alex, you know, if what goes around comes around. So when we get that flexibility from our employer, and we know we don't have to ask permission to go, you know, go and pick up the kids from school or go to the nativity play or whatever it is, or, you know, care for sick relatives and these kind of things. So if you need time to do all of that, it is what goes around comes around. When it comes to it and the chips are down, you're there for that company.
yeah.
But yeah, I do feel like with earlier in career folks, they're really looking to make a great impression as well. I mean, as managers and leaders, we need to be cognizant of that and ensure they are you know, regarded, and we ensure that they don't reach burnout.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, honestly. One way we deal with that is we often do, we leave loudly in terms of when I tell you I'm run, I tell people what's happening. It's happening now. I'm going for a run. I'm going to the gym at lunchtime or whatever it is, or I'm going to the shops, and everyone does this to say, I'm going somewhere. And then the younger members of the team can see that it's acceptable to do these sorts of things. And the more people do that, it breeds that culture. So I completely agree. There's a real fine balance when you get people buying into what you do. They do overwork. You're absolutely right, and some of them will be watching here. Like I know, but yeah, it's a balance. But like important. I say this correctly. They don't do that. So if you're listening, don't overwork.
So trust, having that open communication with everybody, with your manager, and leading by example. Sounds like those are the key things to have a healthy work-life balance in your company.
And just to touch on, really to emphasize as well, those visual cues, you know, that you're saying, Alex, is really important, because we don't see, we're not in an office environment where we can see people who have left for the day or are away. So you have to put it in your diary or leave loudly. Like, I love that. Definitely. Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
For sure. So a couple of things. People are asking if this is recorded. This is recorded. It'll be on the same link as you are watching now. Ask any questions you have now. We'll begin to them after a few more or some other questions. And people are also asking about where they can find remote roles that are not just in IT. There is a link that will show up in the corner, flexer.career/webinar. You can go on there, sign up, and get matched to jobs that are related to your role, your preferences, and those of other things. So to carry on, what communication practices do you find most effective when working remotely? So how do you manage longer discussions, but also just quick discussions, which normally in an office would be someone sitting next to you?
I can start with this one. I think my answer will be different because we're a smaller organization as always, so like a different sort of approach. So we obviously use communication tools, of course we do, but one thing like for our organizations, we have a very flat structure and try and keep people clean communication lines between the teams, so no one ever feels isolated. So on their first day here, people will have a meeting with me. Sadly, they have to talk to me for the first thing, and I'll say to them, at any point, contact me if you've got any problems at all. And if they can see they can do that, it means they can contact anyone in the company at any point. So if we didn't have that clean lines of communication, what we could have is, in a remote setting, you can have a siloed employee who's waiting for one person to be present and respond to their message, and then getting pressure building on them for a problem they have. If we have clean lines of communication throughout the team, there's someone else who will be able to help if that person isn't available, whatever, and you never feel isolated. So we obviously have use Slack and Teams and these products, but that's again, for us, it's a cultural question of having really good, you can talk to anyone, always supporting each other, and really setting that up from the first day of people so they never feel isolated. Yeah.
I would say, actually, this kind of comes back a little bit to the preparation for interview, actually. That one thing that we look at in our processes is ability to work async as well. And that's really valuable in terms of just being able to have that kind of communication norm, because not everything involves, having a meeting. There's opportunities you can get a lot of work done just through that async style of communication. But I think to Alex's point, like it seems really basic, but just having the right tooling and access to tooling is really key. We use Slack, Zoom, we're using Asana now for our projects and our project strategy, and it's been really amazing tool to get everybody aligned and working together and very clear in terms of the output and access to information and updates. I would say also err on the side of clarity. Always provide context in your communications on anything that's happening, and also try to understand the folks that you're engaging with. Everyone operates very differently and engages with information differently, so try to learn the norms there. And some people want to get just bullet pointed updates, others prefer to do those kind of in person as well. So sometimes you just have to understand the various folks in the audience. I would say also have really clear agendas and owners for agendas as well, and clear outcomes from meetings so that they're valuable for everyone. Rotating meeting owners as well, I think, is a good practice, so that you're not hearing one voice all the time and styles are different. And again, everybody has an opportunity to have a voice. And I think, looking at kind of, opportunities for folks to engage, both on kind of more formal business related topics and kind of less formal topics as well would be a good opportunity to connect folks as well.
Those are useful tips also just outside of remote working, especially changing meeting owners. I think that makes it a lot less kind of regular, makes it more exciting.
I think also, like, from a remote perspective, I think that it can be challenging for people trying to lead meetings remotely, and I think it gives a mutual respect for what that looks like, and gives a sense of ownership to everybody to be inclusive and to obviously, as I said, be somebody who understands what it's like to lead as well. So I think they're good opportunities.
Yeah. And just to add to that, I would agree. We also use Slack. So we tend to use Slack for our direct communications, for fast communications. And then we use lots of emojis, because you have to inject a bit of fun and a bit of, to the written communication all the time. So we are big emoji fans at Boomi. And then we also we'll use email. At Boomi, we use Google Docs, which are really good for collaboration. So that's been actually a game changer in terms of, you've got two people in two locations looking to collaborate on one document and, brainstorm. And so we use that platform. We use Google Meet, and I think we probably have more meetings because we're not in the office. So you have to be more intentional with that. So I have a daily stand-up with my team every day, and we all just kind of chip in about what we're working on that day. And but it's pretty relaxed as well. It's just like you would be in the office. So so that's our kind of communication channels that we use, and they seem to work very well.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. We at Flexo, we use Slack. We have loads of groups on Slack for different kind of, if you're asking different teams, then it's really good for the visibility aspect, where it's not just one person who gets asked something, it's everyone can see what's going on. I find that actually quite nice from just like a context point of view, knowing what the company's doing, where I can see what's happening in the sales channel or the customer experience or marketing, and so it just keeps me up to date with the whole company rather than just in a bubble. So I find that really useful. And we also have a random channel where people just talk about random things, and
The best channel.
it's needed. It is. It's
That's
the
actually
most active.
important
Yeah.
remotely to like, I guess, like just to bring a bit of personality into the company as well. Because if you're always talking about that sort of stuff, like, because in an in-office setting, you would talk about things around making cups of tea or something. So just bring that into the culture as well. Like to say, we aren't just talking about work all the time. You know, there's one of my colleagues, Tia, is renovating a farm at the moment, so we get a lot of tractor content on our Slack. It's one of the big topics that we see every week. So,
yeah, we have a Camunda dogs channel, which gets a lot of traffic, actually. I think it's a very, very dog-orientated company. But like that, I actually haven't gone in and looked. I'm sure if I did a search on, various topics that are not work-related, I'm sure there's a channel for a lot of things, and equally have a random channel as well.
That's fantastic. It's always the non-work related channels which get loads of attention. The final question before we go on to questions from our users actually related to this. How do you build genuine connections with colleagues when you've never met in person? So we've spoken about having channels where you talk about random things that you're up to, keeping people up to date. Is there anything else that you find is useful when you can't have that face-to-face time?
Well, I can start if it's cool. For us, like the CFO of my organization, Diana Makarska, I've met 3 times in my life, and we built this business up to be something quite interesting and cool for over the last 4 years. And I trust her explicitly with anything. But the way we do that in terms of building real good connections with people is being authentic and vulnerable, like having empathy for the person on the other end of the call, knowing that when they get out of the work, they've got other considerations at any point. One thing I often talk about as well is that I like when I'm working at home, my wife's up in the house. I work in the shed on the garden. It's not nearly as glamorous as it sounds, I promise you. It's and when I go up to the house, that's where I might have had a stressful morning, and I will say things that annoyed me that morning or something, like to say that. And I understand that everyone working in my organization have got a similar outlet, and to try and make somewhere for them that they're not going to need to find that outlet, because we've created a cool place. And that comes from having empathy for the individual at any point. They're not just a person doing tasks for you. They've got a life outside of that. And that's where you can make good connections with people, by being honest, vulnerable, and empathetic. So yeah, that's it.
Actually, when I was thinking through this in advance as well, I used the term empathetic in my head as well, and intentional and creative. I think you have to evolve how you approach a lot of these things, but I think just being your true authentic self, and obviously, get to know folks as much as they're comfortable to, is a really good way of, just building a foundation. And I know somebody in the messages there talked about voice notes and things like that. I also have started leaning into those a little bit more as well. So not just leaving a Slack message, which can often be misconstrued, or, just asking somebody how their day is, and just very simple things can make a big difference. But as we said already, we often start our team meetings with icebreakers, and not jumping straight into very formal topics, and getting to know folks that way. And I think just also encouraging shout outs and recognition. I think that's also a nice way to build bonds with people as well.
Yeah, I would echo all of that as well. We actually have a tool called Bonusly. It's high five recognition, and it's really a really fun tool that we can use to give shout outs to people, not just in your own teams, but across the organisation. And there's a bit of a point system as well, and you get sort of prizes at the end of it when you build up your points. So that's good fun. So yeah, I would really agree with everything you've said there. I don't really think I've got too much more to add to that one.
And we have similar to that kudos channel where people put any kudos for other people. It's nice to hear what other people are up to. In terms of getting some time as well that you aren't working to talk to other people, we have slacking off once a week, where we usually I play a game, like a drawing game, or sometimes do a quiz. And you do see people's personalities come out, and it kind of builds a bit of culture. You make memes together. And it helps feeling connected. So I feel like having that non-work time on call is quite beneficial for us here.
It is, and I would say as well, we recently had someone on the team go off on maternity leave to have their baby, and we had like a global team virtual maternity baby shower kind of thing. And that was just lovely to get everyone together. We played games and we had fun, and like that, you see everyone's true personalities come out when you just have a session, which is just fun. So those are good.
I love that. I will say as well, in remote companies, it's not the case that you will never get the opportunity to meet in person also. We had an annual kickoff this year in Vienna, and the whole company came together, and it was a very good way to establish the connections and the plan for the year. Those opportunities don't come around all the time, but you will in the course of the year in a lot of remote companies still get access to in-person events or training or different things like that. And it's really a lot of the times companies give you the choice. Like just before this call, we were talking about a training I did in Berlin, but I had the choice whether I wanted to do that in person or do it virtually. And I chose to do it in person because I felt, that's a good way for me to build connections. But it's, it was, as I said, it was great to have the option. But likewise, when we did do the kickoff in Vienna, my team came together and we did a coffee and cake tour around Vienna, which was, very laid back and very nice way to spend time together informally as a team. So I definitely recommend if anyone goes to Vienna, try that out.
Yeah, you will. I think to echo that in terms of you will get FaceTime with people even when you're working remotely. It won't be every day or every week, but it might be every quarter or once a year, and that time is really valuable. And it's nice seeing in person when you always see them on the camera. So some questions from people that have come in. There's two which have kind of merged into one. It's so how do you as a candidate stand out amongst hundreds of applicants when you're applying for a remote role? And on the same topic, how do you not sound generic when you're kind of speaking and when you're trying to sell yourself that way?
Yeah, I would love to take that one. So what we're experiencing at the moment is with everyone using AI-enabled tools on the candidate side, we are seeing a lot of CVs who look like they're perfectly matched to the jobs, and it's making it even more, and the volume is higher because of all of the automation available now, and it's making the job of talent acquisition and recruitment even tougher to decipher who really has the skills. So if you can take the time, do a cover letter and specify what it is about that specific company and the time right now and why you're the best person for the role, and really tailor it. And I always recommend, like you said earlier, connect with people at the company on LinkedIn. It's so easy. Try and even connect with the hiring manager or the leader of the org or the recruiter or someone on the team to make yourself, make an effort to stand out, and that's the best thing that you can do.
Yeah, I think connecting there is probably something that will make you stand out. It'll put you in front of them on LinkedIn, which they're probably on quite a bit. Anything to add, or I can move on to the next question?
I would say be strategic about the roles that you're applying for as well. Blanket applications to multiple roles is not recommended. I think, to Debbie's point, like personalization, like why are you a fit for this role? We have scenarios, unfortunately, where some folks will apply for 10 different roles, for us, it's not a targeted approach. And I think that that's something that I would recommend, is like being mindful of, you know, again, your fit for the role, and looking at like the experience that you can bring to that role, but you know, as I said, not applying to 10 different roles in one organization, because then, you know, obviously from our side, then it's like, okay, well, you know, what does this person want? What are they looking to do? And thinking from the other side.
I completely agree with everything you said there. Nothing to add at all. Particularly, yeah, we often get people that scattergun approach to applications, one landing with us, and like really knowing what the company is, that culture and that personal connection is really how you can make yourself stand out. Like to say why you want to work at any organization, but what it is about them that matches what you're trying to do. That's really how I would try and stand out.
Yeah, I remember when I was applying for loads of roles, my first week of after being unemployed was just applying for everything, and it burnt me out. And I realized I can't just be doing this. I need to be strategically thinking, okay, where do I actually want to be? And I ended up getting more interviews that way, actually wanting to be in those places. So it's so important.
And seek out referrals as well. So if you see an open job, I mean, we're hiring at Boomi right now. We have lots of jobs. Check out our careers page. But you know, if you see a specific job in a specific country, location, you know, really try and go. I mean, you'll be surprised if you go to your own network in LinkedIn, you might have a second or a third degree connection with someone who's working there, who might, you know, might at least give you some advice. They might be, if they know you, happy to recommend you for the role. And if you can get referred into a company, again, that's another tick in the box of another factor to say someone else is recommending you. So that will help.
Always good to have someone there to put in a good word. This might be our last question, and unless we get time afterwards. But how do you deal with any feelings of isolation from not seeing people when you're working remotely? In terms of, you know, maybe someone lives alone in their flat, or they don't get a chance to go outside and actually speak to people. How would you best advise them?
I can start there if you want. Denise, you go. Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay, great. One of the thoughts I have around this is about creating third places for people to find connections with people that like about personal interests. So you think of, like, for me personally, that's going to the gym, where I go there to talk to people about running. They're all runners there. I talk about those things, and they're good connections I can make, so that your connections don't have to be with colleagues in person. So that isolation, you can find you know, work with your colleagues you work with in the evenings. Find what you're passionate about and find groups to go and join, and really make good, strong connections with people that will last your lifetime, rather than just that role or anything like that. So there's different ways of doing it remotely. It opens the door to real good personal relationships with people you really care about. I care about employees, like the team as well, of course, but it gives you something different and that all adds into what we're talking about anyway, of finding the boundaries and, like, you know, creating a good life for yourself, that work-life balance blurring. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, we, as I said, we are located from an individual perspective, you know, in many geographic locations, but we also have opportunity to look and go, okay, you know, and as I said earlier, I'm based in Dublin. I can look and go, you know, are there other Dublin employees? And, you know, some folks like that, you know, want to embrace the concept of a remote company, but actually, you know, here and there, like to get out of their house and go somewhere and work in a WeWork space. And, you know, there's a few folks from Dublin that say, oh, look, once a month, you know, we're going to work in a WeWork on a Wednesday if you want to come along. And like that opportunity is there for me if I feel like, oh gosh, I feel like now is a good time. I've literally spent all day, every day by myself, you know, looking at this screen, and get out and maybe, you know, see some folks as well. So you can be proactive about maybe, you know, looking in your company and seeing, are there other people in a similar location that you could suggest even a coffee chat? But like that as well, like those, you know, having meetings that are kind of less formal. You know, we do kind of welcome meetings for new hires, or as I said, just a coffee chat with folks, and where you're not talking about work specific things, and it's just an opportunity to, you know, build some bonds and get to know some people as well, and kind of tailoring the conversation. So there's just some thoughts as well.
And ERGs, I don't know if you guys do ERGs, employee resource groups as well. So that's something that's an excellent opportunity. We have a lot of employee resource groups at Boomi with different missions and purposes. And it's a great opportunity to collaborate with people in your organisation at all different levels, in all different locations across the world. And really helps you build your network, your professional network as well. I realise we're at time, so
yeah, that's perfectly at time. Yeah, I think just last point, having a group that is outside your work is so important. I know, Denise, you mentioned joining a tennis group. When I travel, I usually try to find something online on Meetup, like play badminton with people, or just anything that will get you to speak to someone else and do something non-work related.
Yes, also focus on fitness, because I'm too close to the snack doors here. So good to have that balance as well.
Yeah, that's always useful. So yeah, that's perfectly on an hour. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining, for tuning in, and thank you to Denise, Debbie, and Alex. That was really, really useful, even for me, and I'm sure for everybody watching. Thank you so much for your time and for your knowledge. Hopefully, we'll see everybody again very soon.